Good morning, I am Taruna Rajora. I welcome you all to my channel Learn Economics in Short. Today's session is for microeconomics. This session is helpful for the students of Generic Elective Semester 5th and student of Economics Honours and Generic Electives Semester 1st. So this is Unit 1, Chapter 4, Market Forces of Supply and Demand. Reference book is MENQ. So we move to the first slide. Basic concepts of demand. Market. It is a group of buyers and sellers of a particular good and services. Okay, basically it's a place. Competitive market is also known as perfect competition. It's a market where there is a large number of buyers and sellers so that each has a negligible impact on the market price. Basically, a single buyer or a single seller can't impact the price. Quantity demanded. Amount of a good consumer willing and able to purchase is quantity demanded. Next is law of demand. There is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and price. Okay, other things being equal. So what are these other things? Basically, these are the factors which affect the demand, like income, price of related goods, number of buyers, tastes and preferences, expectations. Now we come to demand schedule. It's the table that shows the relationship between price of good and quantity demanded. Next is demand curve, a graph of a relationship between the price of a good and quantity demanded. We move to the next slide. So this is the demand schedule. Price, as the price increases, quantity demanded increases. As the price falls, quantity demanded increases. There's an inverse relationship. We can plot these demand schedule into this diagram and we'll get the AB demand curve. It's the demand curve which shows inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. We move to the next slide. Market demand. It is a sum of individual demand curves. Basically, it is a horizontal summation of individual demand. Suppose there is a two consumer in the economy, then summation of individual demands is our market demand for an economy. So we are assuming that there are two consumers, consumer A, this is the demand curve of A, this is the demand curve of B, and we add these demand curves and we'll get the demand curve which is flatter than both of them. Okay, so A plus B is your market demand curve. It's a horizontal summation of individual demand curve. Now we move to the next slide. Types of goods. Normal goods, inferior and substitutes. So other things being equal, an increase in income leads to increase in demand. So we can give the example like wheat is a normal good. So when there's a increase in income, people will increase the demand. Inferior goods, increase in income leads to decrease in demand. C, bajra is inferior as compared to wheat. So when there is an increase in income, people will shift from inferior bajra to normal good, that is wheat. So there is a decrease in demand for bajra, which is an inferior good. Substitute goods are those goods which are used in place of each other. Other things being equal, two goods for which increase in price of one leads to increase in demand for other. Example, tea and coffee. Suppose price of tea rises, then other things being equal, what will happen to the demand for coffee? It will also increase. So there is a positive relationship between price of one good and quantity demanded of other good. That is substitute good. Okay, we move to the next slide. Complements, two goods for which an increase in the price of one leads to decrease in the demand for the other. Basically, complements are those goods which are used together. Okay, so suppose price of ink increases, then other things being equal, demand for its complement, that is pen, will decrease. So there is a negative relationship between price of good and quantity demanded of its complement, keeping other factors constant. We move to the next slide. This topic is very important. Normally question comes from this section. Movement along the same demand curve is due to change in its own price. Basically, there are two types of movement: expansion in demand, contraction in demand. Contraction is due to price increase, expansion is due to price decrease. Okay, I'll show you. See, initial price is P1, quantity is Q1, initial point is C. So when there is a fall in price, from P1 to P0, your quantity demanded expands. C to D is expansion, and when your price rises, there is a contraction from C to A. We move back to the slide. Then we have shift in demand curve. It is due to change in other variables. Increase in demand and decrease in demand. So When there is an increase in demand, there is a rightward shift. When there is a decrease in demand, there will be a leftward shift. Okay. So when there is an increase in income, there will be a rightward shift. Decrease in income, leftward shift. Okay. Price of related goods. So rise in price of substitute and fall in price of complement will increase the demand. So in this case, AG is your initial demand curve. When there is a increase in income, it will shift to right. Decrease in income, it will shift to left. Okay, when there is a rise in price of substitute goods, it will shift to right, and fall in price of substitute goods, it will also shift to right. Increase in demand. Okay, as I explained these things in previous slides. Okay, in the same way, for decrease, fall in price of substitutes and rise in price of complement will decrease the demand. Okay, now next point is tastes. When people develop taste for a commodity, it will increase. When people start, they don't like the product, there will be a decrease in demand. Expectations. When in future people are expecting that there will be fall in price, then they will postpone their demand and there will be a decrease in demand, leftward shift. When people are expecting rise in price in the future, then what will happen? They will increase the demand in the current scenario. Number of buyers. When there is increase in number of buyers, there is a rightward shift. Decrease in number of buyers, there will be a leftward shift. So we move rightward shift from AG to CH, rightward, and leftward shift is from AG to DE. Okay, we move to the next topic. Supply. Quantity supplied, amount of a good that sellers are willing and able to sell. Law of supply is other things being equal, the quantity supplied of a good rises when the price of good rises. So there is a positive relationship. Supply schedule, it's a table that shows relationship between price of a good and quantity supplied. Graph. Supply curve is a graph of relationship between price of good and quantity supplied. Now we move to the next slide. This is the supply schedule as we discussed the demand schedule. So you can see when your price rises, your quantity supplied is increasing. So there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. So supply curve is upward sloping. Okay. Now we move to the next slide. Market supply curve. Sum of individual supply curves is your market supply curve. Say in the economy there are only two consumers, A and B. Then when we add the supply curve of these producers, then we'll get the A plus B market supply curve. It is flatter as compared to the individual supply curve. Then we move to the next slide. Shift in supply curve. So there are variables that can cause shift. It can shift the supply curve. Input prices, technology, expectation, number of sellers. So S1 is your initial supply curve. Okay, input prices, basically inputs are factors which help in the production of a commodity. Okay, so as input prices increases, then supply will fall. Reason is when input prices increases, cost of production increases, so supply will fall. So there is a negative relationship between input prices and supply. So when there is a rise in the input prices, your supply will fall. So it will shift to left, S1 to S2. When there is a fall in input prices, then what will happen? It will shift to supply will increase because there is a cost of production will decrease. When input prices fall, cost of production decreases and supply will increase. So it will shift to right. That is, it shift from S1 to S3. Technology. Advances in technology will reduce the cost for producers, so supply will increase. So when you are using outdated technology, when some firm is using outdated technology and some is using advanced technology, so when there is an improvement in technology, there will be a rightward shift. When there is no improvement, there will be a leftward shift because they are not able to supply that much. Expectations. If a producer expects that in future price of good increases, then he will supply less today and store the good for future. So if the future expectation is that there will be rise in price, then what will happen? There will be decrease in supply. Okay, it will be leftward shift because they will store the good for the future because they want to earn more profit. Number of seller. If producer of some good reduces in the market, then its supply will decrease. See, in some cases, some of the producers are out of market. Okay, so what will happen? It will reduce the market share and there will be a decrease in supply. It will shift to left. And when there is an increase in the number of sellers, it will be the rightward shift. Okay, we move to the next. Equilibrium. Equilibrium is a situation in which the market price has reached the level at which quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. So, this is our demand curve. This is our supply curve. Here we are measuring quantity. Here we are measuring price. So, P1 is our initial equilibrium price. The price that balances quantity supplied and quantity demanded is known as equilibrium price, and Q1 is our equilibrium quantity. Okay. Now there are two terms, surplus and shortage. Surplus means excess supply and shortage means excess demand. A situation in which quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded is your surplus. See in this you can see price above equilibrium is P2. At this price level you can see that we have only this much demand and you have this much supply. So you have excess supply. So this is surplus. People are not demanding at this price that much, but you have enough supply, you have excess supply. So this is surplus. This area is surplus. As you can see, quantity demand is less than the quantity supplied. Okay. So this area is surplus. When we are at lower price as compared to the equilibrium price, P0 is lower than P1, then in this case, we have more demand and supply is low. Okay, this is our supply, Q0 is our supply and Q2 is our demand. So this area is our shortage. Excess demand. Shortage is also known as excess demand. In this situation, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. As you can see, quantity demanded is this Q2 and your quantity supplied is only Q0. So this area is shortage. Okay. Now we'll do the quick revision. So what we learned today in this lecture: basic concepts. Okay, what is law of demand? What is demand schedule? What is demand curve? Market demand curve. Types of good, normal good, inferior, substitutes, complements, shift in demand. This is very important. Expansion, contraction in demand. Supply curve, market supply, shift in demand. What are the variables that cause shift in supply? Basically, equilibrium. So, we meet in the next session. Thank you. Please do like, share, and subscribe my channel. Thanks.